Hi, and welcome to Shop Talk with Jim and Ken. I'm Jim.
And I'm Ken.
Yeah, hello everyone. This is episode 18 of Shop Talk. Today we're going to discuss Aviat's WTM 4100 versus the WTM 4200 platform of radios, what the similarities are and what the differences are, and why you'd want to pick one versus the other. So, Ken, you're our expert on this. Go ahead and just tell us what is the difference between 4100 and 4200? Why do I want one versus the other?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I get asked this all the time. It's like, why are these two different versions? The main thing is that the 4200, this is maybe a little bit technical, but the 4200 has a circular waveguide output. It's a dual pole radio and it's got two cores in it. So it's a dual core, dual pole radio. Basically, what this means is you're going to get a channel of capacity on vertical polarization and a channel of capacity on horizontal polarization. We've talked about this topic before. That might be what's called XPIC, which is basically the two frequency centers are the same frequency, but one channel is vertical, one is horizontal. They might not be XPIC. They don't have to be. They just have to be within the tuning range of the radio. But the 4200 basically should be used, in my opinion, really only for two-channel implementations. This is what it's really good at. It has fantastic RF performance for two channels. It's how it's built. There's one other thing before I get into the 4100, one other unique capability of the 4200, and this is a little bit of an odd one, but it's going to come up more and more. It is a radio that can support MIMO. And everybody's heard the term MIMO before, but probably not in the format of a point-to-point microwave backhaul link. What this is basically two independent radios on two independent antennas, and they are spatially set on each side of a link. And they can, in theory and in capability, you can actually get four channels of capacity on a single pair of frequencies. So let's say you're assigned an XPIC pair, vertical and horizontal on a single frequency. You can have two 4200s at the same end of the link that are both tuned to the same channel and get four times, if you will, four channels of capacity across that link. This is not something that most people need, by the way. Really, it's a feature that if you cannot get FCC or assigned licenses for the channels necessary to expand beyond two channels, this is a means to do that. It's really the only radio that I know of that can. So that's a little bit of a side note on the 4200, but it is a unique capability. Okay, so let's talk about the 4100 now. It's a little bit different. The 4100 is a single pole radio, so that means it can operate either vertically or horizontally. It's just one pole, and it's one transceiver inside it, so it has basically half the hardware. Now, in a single channel implementation, it's obviously going to operate just one channel of capacity versus the two of the 4200, and on one pole instead of two poles. That sounds really easy. Things get a little bit more difficult though in the 4100, and for good reasons. This is all exciting stuff. The 4100 has a software capability called A2C+. It stands for Adaptive Dual Channels. Is it carriers? Thank you. I always forget. I don't know why. Adaptive Dual Carrier. And that basically allows this radio to operate two channels, as the dual carrier might come across. Now, how does it do this? Well, it's magic software. We don't have to get into the details. But the idea is we can basically get two channels of capacity out of this same radio. The biggest advantages to this are that, number one, it's a little bit lower cost to do this in one transceiver than a dual transceiver, the 4200. And it also is lower power consumption because it has basically half the hardware in it. So those can be big advantages for you. The biggest difference here for running two channels, though, is that you get a little bit less RF performance because we have to split the transceiver, so we lose some dBs there. And those two channels have to both be vertically polarized, or they have to both be horizontally polarized. They can't be cross-polarized anymore. They have to be within the tuning range of the radio, which is fine. And they can be adjacent if they need to be, or they can be non-adjacent, whatever the FCC coordinator wants to apply. But you can do two channels out of them. So you basically get the same capacity out of the 4100 as 42. And you could upgrade from one channel to two channels in software, which is kind of exciting too. So it's a really unique product in that way. Now, if you followed us so far, hang on tight because the next thing gets a little more complicated. I will show this with a graphic in a minute or so, but I'm going to explain it first. We can take two of the 4100 radios and we put them on a passive OMT coupler. OMT stands for orthogonal mode transducer. It's basically a dual pole integration scheme. The When we do this, we put two radios behind a circularly polarized dish, just like the 4200 had that we talked about a minute ago. One radio runs two channels on vertical, another radio runs two channels on horizontal. Now we have a 4-channel system. So this is capable within the 4100. It really is the only solution we sell for 4-channel implementation today. We used to sell these fancy versions of the 4200. We don't sell them anymore because they're very inefficient. The 4100 is very efficient at this. In fact, even though I said the 4100 had a little bit less RF capability than the 4200, when we merge them together like this, we get better RF performance in a 4-channel system than any of our competitors or anything that we used to be able to do with dual core radios, which is amazing. It's because the software is more efficient than hardware. So this is very efficient. We get the lower power consumption ×2, essentially. We get a very high performance radio in 4 channels. So give me just a second. I'm going to bring up a screen share and we'll show you what this looks like. All right. I think this graphic does a pretty good job. I'm going to show two different screens or two different versions of this. But basically, the 4100 is half loaded. It only has this one transceiver inside it, but this HEC bubble is basically the capability to get a second carrier out of the radio. So when you're running one channel, we just have to show this horizontal channel out of the 4100. If we have an 80 megahertz channel, we're getting a close to 750 megabits of capacity out of that radio. That radio then can be expanded to 2 channels with the HEC software. And then this radio now gets close to 1.5 gigabits of capacity. And again, you see that both these channels are horizontally polarized in this case. Then we can upgrade or go straight to a 4-channel implementation, which is 2 separate radios on this passive coupler. We now have one radio running 2 channels horizontal, one radio running 2 channels vertical, 4 total channels and close to 3 gigabits of capacity. So that's how all that's done. I'll show you in another graphic in a very similar implementation. Ultimately, the same graphic, 4 channels here, you basically have 2 radios combined with an OMT. We can do this process we call layer 1 link aggregation, which is where we take a fiber from one radio, we bring it over to the other radio. This radio acts as a master aggregator. It aggregates the available capacity of the 2 channels of this radio with the 2 channels of this radio and gives you a single drop fiber to give you the combined capacity of all 4 channels. This is a very effective technique. Basically accounts for adaptive fading, anything that might be happening on any one of those 4 independent channels at real time, aggregates all of the traffic at a layer 1 level very efficiently to give you this complete capability for 4 channels.
Yeah, that's really great. So really the 4100 is a platform that you can start off small with just a single channel radio. As your capacity needs go up, you can just through either license keys get more capacity, and then you can add more hardware without having to discard anything. It's really a system. It's like building blocks almost. You can just add to it as you and go all the way up to a 4+0.
Precisely. Back in the day before we had this capability on the 4100, everybody who wanted 2 channels would buy the 4200 because it was a 2-channel radio. It was very, very good radio, and we still sell a bunch of them, by the way. So that's not the point. But the thing is, now when I'm talking to clients, if they say, "Well, this is a path where we expect the capacity to go up, and we're going to need to expand it, but we don't want to maybe spend all that money up front to do that today. So what can we do?" Well, will typically design in the 4100 then, and we'll design it in such a way that we can easily adapt from either 1 channel to 2 or from 2 channels to 4 or all the way from 1 to 4, by working with the FCC frequency allocations and the hardware implementation. And it's a very easy thing to do. If you've got a difficult place to get to and climbing and changing it out later is a pain, well, maybe you want to just do that up front. You could even put the hardware up there and do the implementation later. Or you can climb or get behind your antenna and just take the radio off, put the coupler on, put the radio back on, and now you've got a 4-channel system. So I'll mention real quickly, we also have some very nice videos. So not in the Shop Doc series, but you'll find them on the Aviat YouTube channel. Some very nice videos on how to implement this hardware implementation of the 4-channel. In fact, Jim's done some of those before, and we can point you in that direction if you need.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thanks for all that information, Ken. That really helps clarify the difference between 4100 and 4200, the WTM radio. So with that, we'll wrap it up and we'll see you on the next edition of Shop Talk.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.